Chapter 1. The Town of Black Hollow. The road to Black Hollow twisted like something alive, a serpent of cracked asphalt slithering through miles of dark, unbroken forest. The trees leaned in too close, their jagged silhouettes clawing at the sky, and the headlights of Evelyn Carter's car barely cut through the creeping fog that clung to the road like a bad omen. She had been driving for hours, the silence of the Maine wilderness pressing in on her like a held breath. When she finally saw the town's faded wooden sign, half swallowed by ivy, she exhaled. Welcome to Black Hollow. Population 2,103. The number had a half-hearted line scratched through it, but no one had bothered to update it. She rolled into town with the heater rattling in protest, and pulled up outside a diner that looked like it had been holding its breath since the 1950s. A flickering neon sign buzzed weakly in the night. Dollars Eats. The place sat low against the street, a squat little building with fogged-up windows and a single street lamp pooling sickly yellow light onto the pavement. Inside, the air was thick with the smell of grease and old coffee, the kind that had been left on the burner long enough to turn bitter. A couple of old men sat hunched over their mugs in a corner, whispering to each other, eyes darting toward the door as Evelyn stepped in. A waitress, a woman with tired eyes and a name tag that read Sandy, barely glanced up as she wiped down the counter. Evelyn slid onto a stool. Coffee, black. Sandy poured without a word. "You new in town?" she asked after a beat, eyes flicking up, scanning her like someone trying to place a face they weren't sure they wanted to remember. "Passing through," Evelyn lied. No need to start a conversation she didn't feel like finishing. Sandy made a non-committal sound and kept wiping. Evelyn took a sip of the coffee and barely stopped herself from grimacing. Burnt, just like she expected, a clock on the wall ticked loud in the silence. The old men whispered, their voices low, the kind of low that people used when they were afraid of being overheard. Evelyn caught a few words, another one missing. "Shouldn't be out after dark, the woods ain't safe," the door creaked open, and the conversation snapped off like a cut wire. A man stepped inside, broad-shouldered and tall, moving with the kind of ease that said he knew exactly how much space he took up. He had dark hair, a little too long, curling damp from the cold night air, and a presence that made the room feel smaller. He shook rain off his leather jacket and stepped up to the counter. Sandy didn't ask what he wanted. She just poured another cup of coffee and set it in front of him like a habit she couldn't break. Evelyn took him in, journalist instincts kicking in hard. There was something about him, something that made the fine hairs on her arms stand up. Not fear. Not quite. But a sense of something coiled, something waiting. The man finally looked at her, ice blue eyes meeting hers across the counter. "You shouldn't be here," he said. It wasn't a suggestion. Evelyn arched a brow. "Friendly town. You planning on staying? Maybe." His jaw tightened, and something flickered in his gaze, something dangerous and knowing. Then, without another word, he threw a few bills on the counter, took his coffee, and walked out. Evelyn watched him go, the way he moved, silent, powerful, like something born to the night. "Who was that?" she asked Sandy. The waitress hesitated, eyes flicking toward the door, like she wanted to make sure he was really gone. Then she said, voice just above a whisper, "Wolf." Evelyn turned the name over in her head. It suited him. "Wolf, huh?" she smirked. Appropriate. Sandy didn't smile. "You should leave, miss," she said instead, voice low. "This town, it don't take kindly to strangers asking the wrong kind of questions." Evelyn took another sip of her coffee, burnt and bitter, and let the silence stretch. She had come here looking for a story, and she'd just found her first lead. Evelyn's rental cabin sat at the edge of town, pressed too close to the trees. It was small, just one bedroom, a cramped kitchen, and a fireplace that looked like it hadn't been used in years. The key from the rental office stuck in the lock, and she had to shoulder the door open before it finally groaned wide. Inside, dust hung in the air like it had been waiting for someone to stir it up. The furniture was old but sturdy, the kind of place meant for hunters or drifters, not someone looking for comfort. The only real luxury was the big window facing the woods, though at night it felt more like an invitation for something to watch her. She dropped her bag on the couch and pulled out her laptop. The wolf attacks had started a few months ago, cattle first, then pets, then people. The reports had been sparse, the local police unwilling to say much. Some bodies were found torn apart, others just vanished without a trace. What made it worse was the way the town reacted, not like people afraid of wild animals. More like people keeping a secret. She leaned back, running a hand through her hair. The diner, the way those old men whispered, the look in Sandy's eyes, it all added up to something she hadn't put her finger on yet. Something old. Something hungry. A sound cut through the night. Low, distant. A wolf's howl, but not like the ones she had heard before. This one was deeper, richer, carrying something more than just an animal's cry. A warning. A promise. Evelyn shivered, despite the heat in the room. She got up, crossed to the window, and pulled the curtain aside. The woods loomed dark and endless, branches clawing at the sky like bone fingers. The wind moved through them, restless. Something moved between the trees, just out of sight. She didn't see it, not really. But she felt it. Something watching. She let the curtain fall back into place. Then, slowly, she locked the door. The cabin was quiet. The kind of quiet that had weight. A silence with teeth. Evelyn Carter dropped her duffel on the wooden floor, dust jumping in the dim light. She exhaled and looked around. The place was small, one room. A rickety kitchen table, a sagging couch that smelled like old cedar, and a fireplace that probably hadn't seen a real fire in years. It wasn't home, but it would do. She shrugged off her jacket, tossed it onto the arm of a chair, and went to the table where her laptop sat open. The glow from the screen painted sharp angles across her face. She had come to Black Hollow chasing a story. A good one, maybe her best. The first body had been found 3 months ago. The official report said animal attack, but the details were thin. Too thin. The sheriff's statements had been clipped, evasive. Then there were the bodies that hadn't been found at all, people who went into the woods and never came back. The locals had a way of talking around it, like the thing they were afraid of might hear if they spoke its name. She flipped through yellowed newspaper clippings, her fingers smudging the ink. Local hunter mauled near Black Hollow's East Ridge, authorities warn of aggressive wolves missing. Abigail Mercer, age 22, last seen near Whispering Pines. Trail third victim, in 2 months search parties, comb up empty-handed, nothing added up. Wolves didn't just make people disappear. Evelyn leaned back, ran a hand through her chestnut brown hair, and sighed. There was something here. She could feel it. She picked up her coffee, lukewarm, bitter, but before she could take a sip, a sound cut through the night. A howl. Low. Long. Too close. The fine hairs on her arms stood up. She set the cup down, got up, and crossed to the big window facing the woods. The glass was cold under her fingertips. Outside, the trees stood still, but the darkness between them shifted. She squinted, her breath fogging the glass. There was something out there. Something big. She should have closed the curtain, walked away. Instead, she stayed there, watching. Waiting. Then movement. A shadow, low and sleek, slipped between the trees. Too fast for her eyes to track. A shape, massive, with shoulders that rolled like liquid muscle. She went still. Then the breathing. Heavy, deep, right outside her window. A pulse jumped to her throat. She couldn't see anything, but she could feel it. Watching. Her fingers twitched toward the curtain, slow, careful. The silence stretched tight as a wire. Then the shadow moved. Something too large for a wolf. Something upright. It didn't lunge. It didn't growl. It just stared. Evelyn's breath came sharp, quick. And then, as suddenly as it had come, it was gone. The branches swayed, the night swallowing the shape whole. She let the curtain drop and took a step back. Her heart was pounding. She should be scared. She should want to run. But deep in her chest, beneath the fear, there was something else. Something sharp. Something pulling her toward the woods instead of away. She didn't know what the hell it was. But she knew one thing. This wasn't just a story anymore. And she was in it now. Deep. Chapter 2. A Warning from Ronan. The sheriff's office was one of those places that smelled like old coffee and older sweat. A small town kind of place with a desk too cluttered for the amount of work that probably got done. Sheriff Hank McAllister was a thick man, built like an old tree stump, with a face that had seen too many years and too little patience. He looked up when Evelyn walked in, his eyes already telling her he wasn't in the mood. "You lost?" he asked, voice flat. Evelyn leaned against the counter, looking for a statement. McAllister snorted. "That's so." She pulled out her notebook, flipped to a fresh page. "The recent wolf attacks. I'd like to ask a few questions." McAllister sighed like a man who'd been expecting this conversation and wasn't happy about it. He pulled a toothpick from his pocket, rolled it between his teeth. "Already gave my statements to the papers," he said. "Yeah," Evelyn said. They were vague, his eyes sharpened. "Ain't much to say. Wolves get hungry. People get careless. That's how it goes. Except wolves don't just make people disappear." Something flickered across his face. "There and gone." "Ms. Carter," he said, slow and careful. "You're new in town, so I'll give you some free advice." Drop the story. She didn't blink. "That a warning, Sheriff?" He sighed again. "It's a kindness." She tapped her pen against her notebook, waiting. McAllister leaned forward, resting his arms on the desk. "You want to write about the town festival? Fine. You want a nice little human interest piece on the history of Black Hollow. Be my guest. But the woods? The attacks? Let him be." Evelyn held his gaze. He didn't look angry. Didn't look nervous. Just tired, like a man who'd seen too much and knew better than to talk about it. She closed her notebook, tucked it into her bag. "Thanks for your time," she said. McAllister watched her go, his expression unreadable. As she stepped out onto the street, the cold morning air hit her hard. She wasn't sure what rattled her more, the warning or the fact that she wasn't ready to listen. The cafe was the same one from the night before Darla's Eats. The neon sign still flickered weakly, like it was struggling to hold on. Inside, the coffee smelled better than it tasted, and the locals were just as wary as they had been the night before. Evelyn ordered a cup anyway and took a seat by the window, flipping through her notes. The sheriff had given her nothing, but that didn't mean there was nothing to find. People always talked, even when they didn't mean to. A chair scraped against the floor across from her. She looked up, and there he was. The man from last night, Ronan Wolf. Up close he was sharper, stronger, tall and broad-shouldered, built like someone who had spent his life fighting things bigger than him, and winning. His black hair was long, a little wild, like he hadn't bothered with a comb. His jaw was rough with the kind of stubble that wasn't quite intentional. His eyes were ice blue but not cold, just watchful, and right now they were watching her. "You should leave," he said. Evelyn arched a brow. That the town motto? He didn't smile. Didn't blink. "You don't belong here." She set her cup down, folded her hands neatly around it. "You always this welcoming or just to me?" His jaw ticked, and for a second she swore his eyes darkened. "You're looking for something you shouldn't be," he said. She leaned forward slightly. "You know what that is?" He didn't answer. Instead, he reached across the table, slow, deliberate, and took her notebook. She let him. For now, he flipped through it, skimming the notes, the dates, the names. Her handwriting neat and precise, staring back at him. Then he set it down and met her eyes again. Some things aren't meant to be found. Evelyn held his gaze. Something coiled low in her stomach. Fear wasn't the right word. It was something else. Something hot. Alive. The air between them felt charged, the kind of static you get right before a storm breaks. And that was when she knew. He knew something. And he wasn't just warning her. He was protecting her. From what, she wasn't sure. Yet, but she was going to find out, even if it killed her. The cafe was quiet, the kind of quiet that held its breath. Outside, the morning mist still clung to the streets, curling around old brick buildings and rusted street lamps like something alive. Inside, the scent of burnt coffee and fried bacon lingered under the fluorescent lights. Ronan Wolf sat across from Evelyn, broad shoulders filling the space like he didn't belong in places with walls. He had a way of looking at people that made them want to look away first. Evelyn didn't. She held his gaze, watching the way his jaw tensed, the way his fingers curled around his coffee cup like he wanted to crush it. "You should leave," he said, voice low. She leaned back in her seat, crossing one leg over the other. "You already said that. You didn't listen. I have a habit of that." Something flickered in his icy blue eyes. Annoyance? Amusement? Something else entirely. It was hard to tell with him. He let out a slow breath, like he was counting to 10 before saying something he'd regret. "The attacks," he started, "are what I'm here for," she cut in. "People are scared. People are missing." "That's a story." "It's not your story," he said. Evelyn smirked. "That's so." Ronan leaned forward, just slightly, just enough to make the air between them tighten like a wire. "Stay out of the woods at night." His voice was softer now, but not in a way that was comforting. It was a warning wrapped in something heavier. She should have been rattled, should have felt some kind of instinctual fear. She didn't. What she felt was something else entirely, something that burned, low and slow. She exhaled through her nose, tapping her fingers against the ceramic of her coffee cup. "I don't scare easy." Ronan's mouth twitched, not quite a smile. "You should," she studied him. His strong jaw, the hint of stubble, the way his dark hair curled at his collar, the way he watched her like he was waiting for something. There was something here, something pulling her toward him like gravity, something that made her want to ignore his warning just to see what would happen. She leaned in just a fraction. "I think you know more than you're saying." He didn't blink. "I think you should drop this before it's too late." Her pulse skipped, but she kept her expression neutral. "I've got a feeling it already is." They sat like that for a long moment, the air between them charged with something neither of them had the words for. Then, as if breaking the spell, Ronan pushed back his chair, tossed a few bills on the table and stood. "Go home, Evelyn," he said. Then he turned and walked out, moving like a man who knew exactly where every shadow fell. She let out a slow breath. Her fingers were trembling, not with fear, something else, something worse. She downed the last of her coffee, grabbed her bag, and slid out of the booth. She wasn't going anywhere, and Ronan Wolf was going to have to get used to that. As she stepped outside, the cold air bit at her skin. The street was quiet, too quiet. She pulled her jacket tighter around her shoulders, heading toward her car. That's when she heard low voices coming from the alley beside the cafe. She slowed, paused. She wasn't the best at eavesdropping, but she'd had practice. Another attack last night. A man's voice, gruff, uncertain. "The sheriff ain't gonna do nothing," another voice answered. A pause. Then Wolf knows something. Always has. A long silence. Then, softer, "He ain't what he seems." Evelyn's pulse kicked hard. She turned to look, but the voices were already gone, swallowed up by the cold morning air. She stood there for a long moment, the words settling into her bones. She didn't know what Ronan Wolf was, but she knew one thing. She was going to find out. Chapter 3. The Unseen Threat. The woods stretched out in front of her, thick and too quiet, like a place holding its breath. Evelyn had been in forests before she'd hiked, camped, chased down stories in places where people didn't want her. But this was different. Black Hollow's woods weren't just trees and shadows. They had a presence. She tightened the strap on her camera and stepped off the dirt road, branches clawing at her jacket as she pushed forward. The town could whisper all it wanted. She wasn't buying it. She'd heard stories before small towns loved their ghosts and monsters. And Black Hollow? It had more than its share. Wolves don't just make people disappear. That's what had been circling in her head since last night. That and Ronan Wolf's warning. Stay out of the woods at night. It wasn't night. Not yet. She kept walking. The trees stood tall and silent, their thick trunks damp with old moss. Somewhere overhead, a hawk screamed, sharp and lonely. Then she saw them. Claw marks. Deep. Ripped into the bark like something had been angry. She crouched down, running her fingers over them. 4 long gashes jagged the ends. Not the work of an animal, not the work of a knife. Something bigger, stronger. Meaner. Evelyn pulled out her camera, snapped a photo. She kept moving. The ground was soft with old pine needles, damp with something that smelled like rain but wasn't. Then she saw the prints. Huge. She knelt beside one, brushed the dirt away. The size alone was impossible. Wolves were big, but this was twice as large as any wolf she'd ever seen. Her pulse jumped. Another photo. Another step forward. Then the growl. The wolf. It came from behind her. Low, rumbling, a sound that didn't just come from an animal, it came from something that wanted her to hear it. She turned, and there it was. A wolf. But not a wolf. It was too big, standing just beyond the tree line, its massive body half-shadowed by the branches. Its fur was dark, almost black, thick and wild, and its eyes, they glowed. Not the dull reflection of light. Not the way normal animals' eyes caught the sun. They burned. Evelyn went very still. The wolf didn't move, didn't lunge, just watched. And for the first time, fear crawled up her spine. Not fear of being attacked. Fear of being known. Like the thing standing in front of her recognized her. Like it had been waiting. Her fingers clenched around the camera. Her breath came slow, measured. Then the wolf took a step forward. Branches snapped under its weight. The air thickened. Another step. Then another. The pull between them was electric, unspoken, heavy. Something inside her whispered run. But something deeper, something she didn't understand, whispered stay. The wolf's chest rumbled. A sound like a warning and something else tangled together. And then it turned. Disappeared into the trees, silent as a shadow. Evelyn stood there, her pulse pounding in her ears. She should have been relieved. She wasn't. She lifted the camera with shaking hands, clicked through the photos. The claw marks, the footprints, and then nothing. No wolf. Like it had never been there at all. A chill crept over her skin. Maybe the town wasn't wrong. Maybe this wasn't just a story. Maybe she was in way deeper than she thought. The air felt tight, thick, like the woods were waiting for something. The wolf in front of her, too big, too wrong, lowered its head, muscles shifting beneath a coat of matted grey fur. Its glowing amber eyes locked on her, a hunter's gaze. Evelyn's breath caught. Not just an animal. Not just a wolf. This thing had intent. She took a slow step back, heart hammering against her ribs. The wolf's ears flattened. It was going to pounce. She knew it. Felt it. Then something else moved. Fast. A shadow in motion. A second wolf, larger, black as night, faster than thought, collided with the first. The impact was bone-crunching. The grey wolf let out a snarl, spinning, claws raking through the dirt, but the black wolf was on it before it could recover. Evelyn stumbled back, breath coming short and sharp. She should run, but she couldn't. She watched. The black wolf was stronger, meaner. It fought with precision, with something more than animal instinct, something like rage. The grey wolf snapped, teeth bared, but it wasn't fast enough. The black wolf hit it again, driving it back, sending it crashing into the trees. The forest echoed with snarls and snapping jaws, the crunch of earth beneath their struggle. Then a yelp, sharp, pained. The grey wolf wrenched itself free, turned tail, and disappeared into the trees, its snarling breath fading into the dark. Evelyn realized she was shaking. The black wolf turned. She should have been afraid, but she wasn't. not in the way she should be. The wolf stared at her, chest rising and falling with heavy breaths. Then it moved. Not toward her. Down. The shift was seamless and brutal. The black fur rippled, melted, gave way to flesh, muscle, bone. The wolf's body pulled itself apart and reformed. And then Ronan Wolf stood in its place. Naked, broad-shouldered, human, his icy blue eyes found hers, and Evelyn. She forgot how to breathe. Chapter 4. Secrets of the Pack. Evelyn woke to the smell of herbs and old wood, something sharp in the air sage, maybe, or something older. The room was dim, lit only by the flickering glow of an oil lamp on a cluttered wooden table. Shelves lined the walls, packed with glass bottles, dried flowers, and books so thick they looked like they'd been waiting centuries to be opened. She sat up too fast, and the world tilted. Easy, a voice said. Evelyn turned. A woman stood by the table, stirring something in a ceramic bowl. She was older, late 40s, maybe dark hair streaked with silver, skin-rich and sun-worn. Her eyes were sharp, deep brown, the kind that looked right through you and found the things you weren't ready to say. "Where am I?" Evelyn asked, voice rough. The woman set the bowl down. "My shop." Evelyn frowned. "And you are?" The woman wiped her hands on a linen cloth. Lena Hawthorne. That name rang in Evelyn's head like an old bell. She'd heard it somewhere. She looked around again. The apothecary. The wall stacked high with strange roots, dried leaves, things in jars she didn't want to think about too hard. "You run this place?" Evelyn asked. Lena gave her a slow, knowing smile. "Among other things." Evelyn's head throbbed. Flashes came back. The woods. The fight. The wolf no wolves. And Ronan, changing, her stomach twisted. That hadn't been a dream. Lena watched her carefully. "You remember, don't you?" Evelyn met her gaze. She could lie. Say it was the concussion, the adrenaline. Say she didn't see what she saw. But she wasn't in the habit of lying to herself, so she said nothing. Lena nodded like she'd expected that, like she knew. Then the door slammed open, and Ronan Wolf walked in. He looked like hell. Still bare-chested, jeans riding low on his hips, his skin streaked with dirt and blood. His dark hair was a mess, falling wild around his face, and his eyes sharp, burning, locked onto Evelyn like she was the only thing in the room. "What the hell were you thinking?" His voice was low, edged with something dangerous. Evelyn swung her legs over the side of the cot. "Good to see you too." Ronan was across the room in 2 strides, his hands gripping the back of a chair like he was keeping himself from breaking something. "I told you to stay out of the woods," he said. She lifted her chin. "Yeah, and that worked out real well for me." His jaw tightened. His shoulders rose with a sharp breath. "I almost wasn't fast enough," he said, voice rough. "Do you get that?" You could have. He cut himself off, shaking his head, fingers curling tight against the wood. Evelyn stared at him. Angry. Frustrated. Concerned. No, not just concerned. Something deeper. Something she wasn't ready to name. Lena cleared her throat. "Would you like some tea, Ronan?" "I'd like her to leave," he snapped. Evelyn folded her arms. Not happening. Ronan ran a hand through his hair, exhaling hard. "You don't understand what you're getting into." "Then explain it." He laughed, but there was no humor in it. "It doesn't work like that." Evelyn narrowed her eyes. "You're hiding something." Lena hummed, turning back to her herbs. "He's hiding many things." Ronan shot her a sharp look. "Lena, she saw," Lena said simply. Ronan's jaw tensed. A muscle jumped in his cheek. Evelyn met his gaze. "So why don't we stop pretending, and you tell me what the hell is going on?" The air between them pulled tight, and for the first time, Evelyn saw it the way he looked at her. Like she was something he didn't know how to handle. Like he was fighting himself. And losing. Ronan Wolf stood like a man ready for a fight. Broad-shouldered, bare-chested, muscles tight with something barely held in check. His hair was a mess, dark strands falling over blue eyes that cut like a blade. Evelyn sat on the edge of the cot, pulse still too high, too fast. She had seen him change. He'd seen the wolf. And now he was here, human again, but still not human at all. Lena Hawthorne poured herself a cup of tea, unfazed by the tension in the room. She moved slowly, methodically, like she had all the time in the world. "He's the reason this town is still standing," Lena said finally. Evelyn blinked. "Come again?" Lena set her cup down. "Ronan. He keeps the real monsters away." Evelyn let out a sharp breath. "Right. Because a 9-foot-tall wolf with glowing eyes isn't a monster at all." Lena's lips twitched. "You're quick. That's good. You'll need to be." Ronan let out a slow, frustrated breath, dragging a hand through his hair. "Lena," she ignored him, "you think the attacks in this town are just a string of bad luck? Wolves acting up? Maybe something supernatural in the woods and nothing more?" She shook her head. "No. This town has been on the edge of something dark for a long time, and Ronan is the only thing keeping it from swallowing us whole." Evelyn stared at them, at Lena's certainty, Ronan's silence. "What are you keeping out?" she asked. Ronan's jaw went tight. Lena's eyes darkened. "Not everything that looks human is human." Evelyn swallowed. "You're talking about what werewolves?" She glanced at Ronan. "Like him?" Ronan flinched. "Barely." But she caught it. "No," Lena said, voice softer now. "Like the one that would have killed you last night if Ronan hadn't gotten there first." Evelyn gripped the edge of the cot. The grey wolf. The way it looked at her. The way it hadn't just wanted to kill her. It had wanted something else. Something worse. "Ronan doesn't just protect this town," Lena continued. "He protects you." Silence settled heavy in the room. Evelyn felt like she was standing on a cliff, looking down at something too big to see all at once. Ronan hadn't said a word. She turned to him. "Say something." He exhaled, long and slow. "You should leave, Evelyn." "No." He closed his eyes for a second, like he was bracing for something. Then he stepped closer, his voice low. "You were never supposed to see me like that." She felt it in her chest, in her bones. Something pulled tight between them. Something she didn't understand. And Ronan Wolf looked at her like it was already too late. Chapter 5. The Hunt Begins. Evelyn drove back to her cabin with her mind tangled and her pulse too fast. She had seen a man become a wolf, had watched bones shift, muscle twist, flesh reshape itself into something impossible. And Ronan. She gripped the wheel tighter. The way he looked at her, the way his voice dropped when he said she wasn't supposed to see him like that. Like it mattered. Like it had changed something. The road stretched dark ahead of her, the town disappearing in the rearview mirror. Black Hollow felt like something behind glass close enough to touch, but just a little too distorted to understand. She should have been afraid. She should have packed her bags and left town. But instead, she was thinking about a man who wasn't a man at all. And the way her heart hadn't screamed in terror, the way it had pulled toward him instead. The cabin was waiting for her, tucked deep against the trees. The porch light flickered once before giving up completely, leaving the place in darkness. She didn't bother turning it back on. Inside, she tossed her bag on the couch and kicked off her boots. The place felt too still. The kind of stillness that wasn't empty but watching. She grabbed a bottle of water from the fridge, twisted the cap off, and took a long drink. She needed to clear her head. Then something moved outside. She froze. A shadow just past the window. Then a knock. Not the kind from someone who wanted permission to come inside. The kind that said they were already coming in. She put the bottle down carefully and crossed the room, pulse hammering. She cracked the door open, fingers tight on the handle. And Ronan Wolf stood on her porch. The moon hung low behind him, turning the edges of him silver. His shirt was wrinkled like he'd just thrown it on, and his black hair was still a mess from the fight. But it was his eyes that caught her first. That steady, unreadable blue. "We need to talk," he said. She crossed her arms, blocking the doorway. You always show up in the middle of the night." He exhaled. "I wouldn't be here if it wasn't important." Evelyn studied him. He looked worn down, like he hadn't slept. Like he'd spent the time since she left thinking about something just as hard as she had. She stepped aside. "Come in." He didn't sit. Didn't move far from the door. He just stood there, too big for the room, too restless for stillness. She waited. Finally he spoke. "You're in danger." Evelyn lifted a brow. "I figured." His jaw tightened. "You don't get it. The rogue, he knows you saw him. He knows you saw me." A beat of silence. "He's going to come for you." Something cold slid down her spine. She set her shoulders. "Let him." Ronan swore under his breath, low and sharp. "Damn it, Evelyn." She stepped toward him, closing the space between them. "You don't get to tell me to run." His hands clenched at his sides. "I do when I'm the only thing keeping you alive." She stopped breathing for a second. The words weren't just frustration. They were something else. Something he hadn't meant to say out loud. She watched his face. The way his eyes stayed locked on hers. "You're not just protecting the town," she said quietly. He swallowed. The air pulled tight between them, like the moment before a storm hits, before lightning finds its mark. Then he stepped back, breaking the charge. "I'll be close," he said, voice rough. "Stay inside. Lock your doors." Then he was gone, disappearing into the night like he belonged to it. Evelyn stood there long after he left, her heart pounding. Because she knew. The hunt had already begun. The cabin door swung shut behind him, leaving the room too quiet. Evelyn still stood near the entrance, breath unsteady, heart running too fast. The space Ronan Wolf had just occupied felt heavier, like he'd left something behind that wasn't entirely visible. She should have been afraid. She should have been packing her bags, heading for the nearest highway, leaving Black Hollow and its secrets behind. But she wasn't. Instead, she felt something else. A pull. Like a thread, invisible and unbreakable, tightening between them. It had been there from the beginning. She hadn't wanted to acknowledge it, had shoved it into the same mental drawer as bad ideas and dangerous men. But it was real, and it wasn't letting go. She stepped away from the door and grabbed the water bottle she'd abandoned earlier, twisting the cap on and off without drinking. She could still feel him. Not just the way his voice had scraped against her ribs low and rough. Not just the way he'd looked at her like she was something he hadn't meant to find, but now couldn't let go of. It was something deeper. Something she didn't have a name for. Her fingers tightened around the bottle. Outside, the wind shifted, and she knew he hadn't left. Not really. She pushed open the door. The porch was empty, the trees standing tall and quiet beyond the clearing. But she could feel him, waiting, watching. She stepped outside into the night air, arms crossing against the chill. "You're still here," she said. A beat of silence. Then, from the shadows, you already knew that. Her pulse jumped. She took a step forward. Then another. And then he stepped into the light. Ronan Wolf. Dark. Broad-shouldered. More shadow than man. But his eyes found her first. That sharp blue, cutting through the dark like a blade to the ribs. "You're not afraid," he said. It wasn't a question. Evelyn exhaled, slow. "Should I be?" His jaw tightened. "Yes, but he didn't say it like a warning. He said it like a confession." She tilted her head, studying him. The way he stood, tense but unmoving. Like he was holding something back. Like he was fighting himself. She took another step toward him. "What are you?" His breath came slow, measured. Then he moved. Not much, just half a step forward. But it changed everything. The air between them thickened. The pull, that impossible, unspoken thing, tightened. And when he spoke, his voice was low, full of meaning, edged with something dangerous. "Yours." The word hit her like a match to dry wood. And Evelyn knew. Whatever this was, whatever had started between them, it had already begun. Chapter 6. The Pull of Fate. The dream started that night, not the kind that faded in the morning, slipping between the cracks of memory. These stuck. They came like a fever-hot, vivid, too real to be just imagination. She was running. The forest stretched out ahead, vast and dark, trees blurring past as she moved like she belonged there. The air smelled of pine and damp earth, the wind sharp against her skin, and beside her Ronan, not a man, not entirely. A massive black wolf, running step for step with her. She could feel him more than see him. The rhythm of his movements, the heat of his body, the unspoken connection like a pulse beneath her own skin. They weren't chasing. They weren't running from something. They were running for the sheer, wild joy of it, like instinct, like fate, like something she'd forgotten and was just now remembering. Then, just before she woke, a voice, low, familiar, not hers, not his. "He will destroy you." She woke up gasping. Morning light cut through the window, pale and cold. Evelyn sat up, shaking off the last shreds of the dream. Her body still hummed, like something had reached inside her and rewired everything. She needed answers. She got dressed, grabbed her keys, and drove straight to Lena Hawthorne's shop. Lena didn't look surprised when Evelyn walked in. She just tilted her head, watching her like a cat might watch a bird that had flown into its territory. "You've been dreaming," Lena said. Evelyn stopped in her tracks. "How do you know that?" Lena's mouth curved, just slightly. "Because you wouldn't be here otherwise." Evelyn exhaled sharply, walking past shelves lined with dried herbs, thick books, and things floating in jars she didn't want to think about too hard. She leaned against the counter. "What's happening to me?" Lena poured herself a cup of tea. He didn't offer Evelyn one. Didn't look like she was going to. "You've stepped too close to something bigger than you," Lena said. "And now it's pulling you in." Evelyn's fingers tapped against the wood. "The rogue. The one Ronan warned me about. Who is he?" Lena stirred her tea, slow and methodical. "He was Pack once." Evelyn went still. Lena glanced at her. "Didn't expect that, did you?" Evelyn shook her head. "No. The rogue, his name was Elias. He was like Ronan once. Strong. Loyal. But something happened. Something inside him broke. He stopped protecting the town and started hunting. The air in the shop seemed heavier now. Evelyn's mouth felt dry. Hunting what? Lena's dark eyes locked onto hers. "Women," she said. The word landed like a stone. Evelyn's fingers curled against the counter. "And now he knows about me," she said. Lena nodded. Evelyn swallowed. "And Ronan?" Lena exhaled through her nose. "Ronan was the one who banished him." Evelyn frowned. "Why didn't he kill him?" A pause. "Then because once they were brothers." The room stretched into silence. Evelyn felt something shift in her chest, something sharp, something that felt a lot like destiny. Evelyn left Lena's shop with more questions than answers. The rogue Elias had once been Pack, once been like Ronan. But something had broken in him, and now he was a hunter of women. And now he knew about her. The thought should have rattled her. Maybe it did. But there was something else clawing underneath it. Something just as dangerous. Ronan. She didn't want to think about him. Didn't want to think about the way her skin burned when he was close. The way his voice sank into her like something old and familiar, like fate. She had never believed in that kind of thing. But this, whatever was happening between them, felt inevitable. And that scared her more than the rogue ever could. She found herself back at the cabin, pacing. Her body felt too tight, like something inside was trying to claw its way out. The memories wouldn't stop. The way Ronan had looked at her that night. The way his voice had dropped when he said, "Yours." She cursed under her breath, ran a hand through her hair, and went to the sink, splashing cold water on her face. It didn't help, because when she looked up, he was there. Ronan stood just outside the window, watching. Her stomach dropped. She stepped toward the door before she could think better of it, pulling it open. "I don't like people sneaking around my house," she said. "I don't like people ignoring warnings." His voice was rough, his blue eyes unreadable. But there was heat there, too. a pull she could feel just as much as he could. She crossed her arms, planting herself in the doorway. "I'm guessing you didn't stop by for small talk." Ronan exhaled through his nose. "Elias is getting closer." The name sent something cold through her. But it wasn't just the danger. It was the way Ronan said it, like the name alone meant something heavy. Something that had been haunting him for a long time. She stepped closer. "This fight between you two, this started before me." Ronan's jaw ticked. "You don't need to know everything." "Then tell me what I do need to know." He stayed quiet for a beat. "Then you need to know that he won't stop." His voice was low. "Not now. Not until he has you." The air between them thickened. She swallowed, pulse hammering against her ribs. "And you?" she asked. Ronan's breath came slower, heavier. His shoulders tensed like he was holding something back. She knew that look. She had seen it before, right before he said yours. But instead of answering, he took a step back, and Evelyn felt the loss of his heat like a shock. She should have let him go. She didn't. "You feel it too," she said. His body went rigid. She wasn't sure why she said it. Maybe because it was true. Maybe because she needed to hear him admit it. But Ronan just let out a slow breath, a man on the edge of something. Then he turned, disappearing into the trees. And the moment he was gone, she felt it. That emptiness. Like she was missing something she hadn't even realized was hers. The town was quiet. Too quiet. Evelyn pulled into Main Street, parked outside the cafe. Something felt off. Then she saw the crowd. She barely heard herself get out of the car, barely heard her own footsteps as she moved toward them. People were whispering. Some were crying. She pushed through until she saw the body. It was a man, mid-40s. His throat had been torn open, his chest a ruin of claw marks. Blood had soaked into the pavement, black in the moonlight. And next to him, carved deep into the sidewalk, was a mark, a symbol, one she had never seen before. But somehow she knew it was meant for her. She felt Ronan before she saw him. He was suddenly there, beside her, his body a wall of heat and tension. His hands clenched into fists. His voice was low, tight. "He's coming for you." Evelyn swallowed hard, heart hammering, because she knew he was right. The hunt had begun, and this time she was the prey. Chapter 7. The Blood Moon Revelation. Ronan drove in silence, his hands tight on the wheel, his eyes straight ahead. The road was nothing more than a strip of dirt cutting through dense, endless trees. There were no street signs, no mile markers, nothing to tell her how far they'd gone or how deep they were heading. The headlights caught glimpses of the forest's twisted roots, the glint of something watching, the flicker of movement just beyond reach. Evelyn sat in the passenger seat, arms folded, jaw clenched. She should have demanded answers. Should have told him to turn the damn car around. But she didn't. Because part of her, the part that had been shifting, unraveling ever since she stepped into Black Hollow, knew this was the only way forward. The body in town. The symbol carved into the pavement. The weight of Ronan's warning in her bones. "He's coming for you." She didn't have time to fight this anymore. They pulled off the road into a clearing so hidden it felt like a secret. A narrow path stretched ahead, lit only by the moon hanging low and heavy in the sky. Evelyn climbed out of the truck, gravel crunching under her boots. The air was sharper here, thicker with something she couldn't name. She followed Ronan up the path, her pulse hammering harder than she liked. Then she saw it. Nestled between the trees, half hidden by the earth itself, was a structure carved from stone and wood. A sanctuary. The door was massive old, weathered oak, marked with deep etchings that looked more like warnings than decorations. Ronan pushed it open, the heavy wood groaning under his touch. Inside, the air was warm. Firelight flickered against the stone walls, casting shadows that moved too much, like they had minds of their own. And then she saw them. They were waiting. Men and women, all watching her. Their expressions unreadable. Some were broad-shouldered, built like Ronan, with eyes too sharp, too aware. Others were lean, watchful. But they all had the same thing in common. They weren't afraid of the dark. Because they were the dark, Evelyn exhaled slowly, forcing herself not to take a step back. Ronan walked ahead, shoulders squared. She needs to know. A woman stepped forward, older than the others, with silver-streaked dark hair and sharp, knowing eyes. Lena. Of course. She studied Evelyn for a long moment before speaking. You feel it, don't you? Evelyn didn't answer. Lena smiled slightly. The pull. The way the world doesn't fit quite right anymore. Like you're standing at the edge of something you don't understand. Evelyn swallowed. I don't believe in fate. Good, Lena said. Because fate doesn't care what you believe. The words landed too hard, too true. Ronan exhaled, running a hand through his dark hair. He looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. But then he turned to her, and everything stopped, because his eyes burned, not with anger, not even with frustration, with something she wasn't ready to name. I didn't want this, he said. His voice was low, rough. I didn't ask for it. Evelyn's stomach twisted. For what? He hesitated, just for a second. Then he stepped closer, and everything between them pulled tight. You, she barely breathed. What? You're mine. The words landed like a punch, like a brand. She shook her head. No, it doesn't matter if you don't want it. His voice was steady, like he had already fought this battle 1,000 times. You are mine, and I am yours. Evelyn took a step back, hands curling into fists. No, she said again, firmer this time. That's not how this works. Lena watched them carefully, but she didn't interfere. No one did, because this was between them now. Ronan's jaw was tight. His whole body was tense, like he was holding something back. You think I wanted this? His voice had a sharp edge now, something raw beneath it. Evelyn's chest tightened. I don't belong to anyone. Something flickered in his eyes. And for the first time she saw it, the fight inside him. Not just frustration, not just anger, but fear. Not fear of her. Fear of losing her. She didn't understand it. Didn't want to. Because if she did, that meant this was real. And if it was real, then she was in deeper than she could ever escape. She turned sharply. I'm leaving. Ronan didn't stop her. Didn't say anything. But she felt it as she pushed past him. Felt the weight of his presence. She felt the way her body ached when she moved away from him. Felt the bond, invisible but unbreakable, already wrapping around her like chains. And she hated it. Because no matter how fast she walked, she already knew the truth. She would never be able to outrun this. Outrun him. Outrun what she already was. Evelyn didn't remember the drive back. She knew she had left Ronan standing in that firelit sanctuary, surrounded by his kind, watching her like she was a loose thread that would unravel everything. She knew her hands had been shaking when she gripped the wheel. She knew her chest had felt too tight, her skin too hot, her own breath too loud. She knew she should have felt relief when she saw her cabin appear through the trees, standing just as she had left it. But she didn't. Because the moment she stepped out of the car, she felt it. Something was wrong. The forest was too quiet. The wind had died. The crickets had stopped. Even the trees felt like they were holding their breath. Evelyn walked toward the porch, her boots crunching against the gravel. Then she saw it. A streak of red across the door. No, not a streak. A message. The words were jagged, smeared, as if written with something that had fought against it. You are mine. Her stomach twisted. The blood was fresh. Her fingers twitched toward her pocket where her phone should have been. She had left it in the truck. A stupid mistake. The air felt thick, pressing against her like a weight she couldn't see. Then, from the trees, a rustling, not the wind, not an animal, something watching. Waiting. She turned, breath caught in her throat. The forest stretched deep and dark, and somewhere out there he was there. The rogue, Elias, her legs locked in place. She knew if she ran he would chase her, and he would win. A branch snapped, closer now. Then a growl, low, hungry. Her pulse slammed into her ribs. Then a second sound, not a growl, not from the rogue, This one was deeper, fiercer, and it came from behind her. She turned, and Ronan was there. He stepped between her and the trees, broad and solid, his presence shifting the air itself. His eyes burned like ice and fire at the same time. Evelyn didn't know how he had gotten here so fast. Didn't care, because the growling had stopped, and the presence in the trees was gone. Silence stretched. Ronan didn't look at her. He just stared into the woods, his jaw tight, his fists clenched. Then, finally, he marked you. It wasn't a question. Evelyn exhaled. It's not my blood. That's not the point. His voice was rough, raw. He turned then, his eyes sharp, his breath slow and heavy like he was holding something back. You can't stay here. Her throat felt tight. I'm not running. He stepped closer. Something hot curled in her stomach. You think this is a game? His voice dropped lower. Dangerous. She lifted her chin. I think I don't need you telling me what to do. His hands clenched at his sides. His whole body was rigid, like he was forcing himself to stay still. You don't get it, he said, voice like gravel. Elias won't stop. Not until you're dead. Or worse. Her stomach twisted. She knew what worse meant. Silence stretched too thick between them. Then his voice quiet, almost broken. Let me protect you. Her heart slammed against her ribs. Because it wasn't just a command. It was a plea, she swallowed. And if I say no? His blue eyes burned into hers. Then you die. The words landed hard. And for the first time, she realized there wasn't a choice at all. Chapter 8. The Rogue Strikes. The night was thick, too still, too quiet. Evelyn stood in the cabin, staring at the blood smeared across her door. The words were drying now, turning rust-brown under the moonlight. You are mine. Her fingers curled into fists. Not a chance in hell. Behind her, the fire in the hearth had burned low. Ronan had left hours ago, his last words still hanging in the room. Let me protect you. She hadn't given him an answer. Maybe she should have, because when the wind shifted, the air turned wrong. And then the door exploded inward. Evelyn barely had time to move before something slammed into her. Hard, fast. She hit the floor, her breath tearing from her lungs, the world spinning. Then came the weight. Heavy, crushing, wrong. A hand closed around her throat, pressing her down, and then a voice low, guttural, dripping with something ancient and cruel. Mine, it whispered. She gasped, fighting, kicking, clawing. Her nails raked across bare skin, rough like scars and calluses. The man not a man grinned. Keep fighting, Elias rasped. I like it better that way. His breath was hot against her cheek. His eyes glowed yellow in the dark, and then the night swallowed them both. The world blurred past in streaks of black and green. Evelyn thrashed, but Elias carried her like she weighed nothing, moving fast, too fast, inhumanly fast. Branches whipped against her skin. The forest blurred too deep, too far from town. No one would hear her scream. Then suddenly he stopped. He dropped her onto the cold earth, towering above her, his bare chest streaked with blood, muscles shifting beneath scarred skin. Evelyn scrambled back, sucking in a ragged breath. Elias crouched, watching her like she was something breakable. You feel it, don't you? He murmured. She clenched her jaw. Go to hell. He laughed, deep and awful. I've been there. A pause. Then his head tilted, eyes narrowing. Ronan's mate. The words landed like a weight in the dirt. Evelyn's pulse pounded. I don't belong to anyone. Elias leaned in, close enough that she could see the darkness in his eyes. That's what makes it fun, she lunged. Fingers curling into the dirt, she kicked hard, catching him under the ribs. He grunted, but when she tried to move, his hand snapped around her wrist like an iron shackle. Not bad, he mused, but not enough. His other hand wrapped around her throat. His grip tightened. Evelyn choked, struggling, kicking, scratching. Do you know why I took you? He whispered, his breath thick with blood and something older. Not for me. For him. She went still. His smile was slow, sharp. You're Ronan's mate. His claim, his weakness. His fingers tightened, cutting off her air, and when he watches me tear you apart, he'll break. Something deep inside her burned, something ancient, primal. A growl curled in her throat, low and vicious. Elias stiffened, and then a howl shattered the night. Not a warning, a promise. Ronan hit Elias like a bullet. 1 second he was a man. The next he was a monster. Black fur, snarling jaws, teeth snapping. The impact sent Elias sprawling, and then the pack was there. A blur of shadows and teeth, a circle of wolves closing in. Evelyn gasped, dragging in air, her throat raw. Elias was already back on his feet, grinning through the blood. You brought friends, he sneered. Good. It'll be more fun this way. Then he shifted. His body twisted, bones snapping, fur tearing through skin. And then the rogue was there, bigger, darker, monstrous. The pack surged forward. Teeth clashed. Blood sprayed. The fight was fast. Brutal. Elias moved like something untouchable, all claws and sharp angles. But Ronan fought like he had nothing left to lose. Fangs met flesh. Claws raked deep. The ground ran red. Then Elias struck. Fast. Precise. His claws sank deep into Ronan's side. The black wolf staggered. Then fell. Evelyn's breath stopped. Everything slowed. Elias stood over Ronan, his chest heaving, his teeth bared in a victorious snarl, and Evelyn felt it in her bones. The pull. The bond. The unbreakable tether tying her to the man dying in the dirt. Her mate. And she knew if she didn't do something, Ronan would die. Chapter 9. The mating bond awakens. The night smelled like blood. Evelyn hit the ground hard, knees sinking into the dirt. Her hands pressed against Ronan's chest, against the deep gashes torn through his flesh, warm and slick with blood. Too much blood. His breath came shallow, ragged. His wolf form had faded, leaving only a man broken, dying. And she couldn't let that happen. She wouldn't. Ronan, she whispered, voice shaking. His eyes flickered open, pale blue, unfocused. She could feel him slipping, feel the bond between them fraying at the edges, unraveling like thread pulled too tight. Something inside her snapped. She had fought this. Fought him. Fought the pull. Fought the way the world had shifted the second she met him. But she couldn't fight this. She wouldn't. Not if it meant losing him. Her fingers tightened against his skin. Stay with me. His breath hitched. Evelyn, he rasped. His voice was raw, weak. She leaned in, forehead pressing against his, eyes burning. You don't get to leave me. A faint, bitter laugh. I thought you didn't. She cut him off with her mouth on his, and the world lit up. It was more than a kiss. It was fire under her skin, a jolt of electricity shooting through every nerve. The second her lips touched his, the world snapped into place. She felt it click, like a key turning in a lock. Like something ancient waking up inside her. Ronan's body jerked beneath her, his breath shuddering in, sharp and sudden. His fingers dug into her arms. Not weak anymore. Not fading. She pulled back, gasping, her pulse hammering. His eyes, those impossible blue eyes, were burning. Not weak, alive. And she felt it. The bond. The thing she had fought, denied, ignored. It wasn't asking anymore. It was claiming. Ronan growled, deep and primal, and before she could move, he flipped her onto her back. The weight of him, the heat of him, pinned her to the earth. His breath came heavy, his body still trembling from the fight. But his wounds, they were closing. Flesh knitting back together, the raw slashes across his ribs, sealing as if they had never been there. She stared. You healed, she whispered. Ronan braced himself above her, breath hot against her skin. His lips curled, just slightly. You did that, she swallowed hard. How? His thumb traced along her jaw, almost reverent. You accepted me. Her pulse skipped. She had, without thinking, without second-guessing, without running. The realization settled deep in her chest, a warmth she hadn't expected. But before she could say anything, before she could breathe, a growl cut through the night. Low, savage, not Ronan's, Elias, still standing, still waiting, still ready to kill them both. The battle wasn't over, not yet. The night felt different, sharper, like every shadow had teeth. Evelyn stood, breath still coming fast, body still wired from the bond. It was in her now, this thing between her and Ronan, this invisible pull, this heat. And it wasn't just in her head. She felt stronger. The pain in her limbs from being dragged through the woods. Gone! Gone! Her senses on fire. She could hear the wind shifting through the trees, the breathing of the wolves around her, the distant heartbeat of something in the dark. She turned to Ronan. His wounds were gone, but his eyes hadn't left her. "What did you do to me?" she asked, voice lower than she meant it to be. His lips curled, not quite a smile, not quite anything soft. "I didn't do anything," she swallowed, pulse thrumming. The bond, it had changed her. There wasn't time to deal with that now. A low growl rumbled through the clearing. The pack had gathered, their movements tense, ready for the next fight. Because Elias was still out there. And this time, they were going to end it. They moved through the woods in silence. Evelyn should have felt out of place, a human in a pack of wolves. But she wasn't just human anymore. Not after what happened. Ronan was beside her, moving fast, his body a perfect blend of control and raw power. And she could feel him, not just see him, not just hear him. She felt his presence like a second heartbeat, like something threading through her ribs, pulling her toward him even when she wasn't looking. It should have scared her. Instead, it felt like the most natural thing in the world. The scent of blood still clung to the air. Elias was close. A wolf ahead of them, a large, grey one with a scar down its side, let out a short, low howl. The signal. They had him. Ronan turned to Evelyn. His voice was low, rough. "You stay with me." It wasn't a question. It wasn't a request. And she didn't argue. Because for once she wanted the same thing. They found Elias standing in a clearing bathed in moonlight. He was still in wolf form, massive, dark, his fur streaked with blood. But he wasn't running. He was waiting. Evelyn's pulse pounded. Something was wrong. Ronan must have felt it too, because he stiffened beside her. And then a second growl. Low, different. From the shadows beyond Elias, more figures emerged. Not wolves, men, tall, broad-armed, eyes gleaming with something cold and violent. And in that moment, Evelyn knew this wasn't just about Elias anymore. This was something bigger, something older. And the real fight was only just beginning. Chapter 10. The Resurrection of the Pack. The air cracked with tension. Evelyn stood at Ronan's side, her heart hammering, the weight of something ancient and inevitable settling into her bones. Elias wasn't alone. The men in the shadows moved forward, slow and deliberate. They weren't ordinary men, their movements were too controlled, their eyes too cold. Hunters. Ronan growled, a deep, primal sound that sent a shiver up Evelyn's spine. Elias bared his teeth in something that wasn't quite a smile. His wolf form rippled with barely contained energy, muscles shifting under his dark, matted fur. "This isn't over," Elias rasped, his voice distorted, more beast than man. "You think you've won, brother? You don't even know what's coming." Ronan's fist clenched. "Then let's finish this now." And then the fight began. The clearing erupted in chaos. Elias lunged first, a blur of fur and teeth, but Ronan was faster. He met his brother mid-air, their bodies colliding like thunder. Evelyn didn't think she moved. The hunters surged forward, weapons drawn. Silver glinted in the moonlight. She ducked the first attack, her body reacting before her mind could catch up. Her hand shot out, grabbing a blade before it could reach her. She twisted, drove it into the hunter's side. He crumpled with a strangled sound. She barely had time to register it before another one came at her. She spun, her movements fluid, effortless. Strength she shouldn't have had surged through her limbs. The bond, Ronan's bond. She wasn't just moving on instinct, she was moving like one of them. A wolf without the fur. A mate. A part of the pack. She turned just in time to see Ronan slam Elias into the dirt, snarling, fangs inches from his throat. Elias laughed. Blood dripped from his mouth. "You don't get it," he rasped. "This was never about me." Ronan hesitated, just for a second, and Elias struck. His claws raked deep across Ronan's side. A killing blow. Evelyn's breath caught. Ronan staggered, dropped to one knee. Blood seeped into the earth. Elias loomed over him, panting victorious. "This town," he whispered, "won't survive what's coming." And then Evelyn moved. She didn't think, didn't hesitate. She grabbed the hunter's blade from the dirt and drove it straight into Elias's heart. His eyes went wide. For a moment there was nothing but silence. Then Elias collapsed, and he didn't get back up. The battle was over. The remaining hunters fled, vanishing into the night. The pack regrouped, bruised, bleeding, but victorious. Evelyn knelt beside Ronan. His breathing was shallow. "Stay with me," she whispered. His fingers curled around hers. His voice was weak but steady. "I'm not going anywhere." The pack gathered around them, watching her, not as an outsider, not as a human, but as one of them. A mate, a wolf in spirit, if not in form. And Evelyn knew she belonged here, with Ronan, with them, with Black Hollow, but then a distant sound, low, echoing through the trees. Another howl. Not one of theirs. And Evelyn realized the fight wasn't over. Not yet. The storm had passed. Black Hollow stood quiet under the weight of what had been and what was coming. The scent of blood had faded, washed away by the cold bite of the wind, but Evelyn could still feel it, the fight lingering in the bones of the town, in the earth itself. She could have left. Should have, maybe. That had been the plan. Get in, chase the story, get out. But now she belonged to this place. She felt it in the way the town breathed around her, in the way the trees whispered at night, in the way the full moon hung heavy in the sky watching, waiting. And she felt it in him. The pack had accepted her. No questions, no doubts. She wasn't one of them, not in blood, not in form, but in bond. That was different. Ronan hadn't said anything when she told him she was staying. He had just watched her, eyes steady, sharp, unreadable. Then he had nodded once. Like he had known all along. Like it had never been a question. And maybe, deep down, it never had been. The night air was cool against her skin, carrying the scent of pine, of damp earth, of something wild. Evelyn stood at the edge of the forest, staring up at the silver coin of the moon, full and glowing. Footsteps behind her, heavy, deliberate. She didn't have to turn to know it was him. Ronan stopped beside her, hands shoved into his jacket pockets, shoulders relaxed in a way they never had been before. "You sure about this?" he asked, voice low, rough. She glanced at him. "You hoping I'll change my mind?" His mouth quirked, just a little. "No." A pause. "Then you were always mine, Evelyn." His voice was softer now, full of something old and certain, even before you knew it. And as she stood there, under the full moon, beside the man who had become something more, she finally understood. She had never really been lost. She had just been waiting to be found.